Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another news rumor review here to discuss. In today's video, we're talking about a couple of injury updates, some small pieces of news, and we've got trade rumors involving the Flames, the Oilers, the two Alberta teams, as well as the San Jose Sharks. So we'll touch on all these things, including these trade rumors, coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this with all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below and don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. So in today's video, we've got a very interesting video here. We're talking about some news and rumors. I usually start off, we're talking about some signings, but there have been no signings over the past 3 days. So we're going to start off, we're talking about some injury updates today. We've got a long list of injury updates here to talk about, so we're going to start off in the Atlantic Division, starting with the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres have placed Justin Danforth, who was out at least a month on injury reserve with a lower body injury, while Jacob Bryson left Saturday's game with an upper body injury and didn't return. So hopefully Bryson's not going to be out for an overlong period of time, because that blue line is looking a little bit thin right now for the Buffalo Sabres. But bad news to see Danforth go down. We already talked about that in one of our recent videos. Not too surprising. He got placed on injury reserve, with him most likely being out for a month. Patrick Kane missed Sunday's game for the Detroit Red Wings with an undisclosed injury. It's unclear how long he's going to be out at this point in time, but hopefully that's not an overly severe injury for Kane. Nico Mikkola left Saturday's game with upper body injury and didn't return. However, a couple days ago he was at practice, so he might be able to get back in the very near future. That's still not overly great news there for the Panthers. Kane Goulet is out for 6 weeks with a lower body injury, while Kirby Dach and Patrick Laine both missed the most recent game for the Montreal Canadiens with lower body injuries. So the injury to Goulet is going to be severe, and it's going to be keeping him out for the next month and a half. So that's not overly great news there for the Montreal Canadiens. Well, Kirby Dach, Patrick Laine, they're day-to-day. Hopefully they won't be out for an over long period of time, but some very interesting injury blows there for the Canadiens. We're going to go over to the Blackhawks. Jason Dickinson missed Sunday's game with undisclosed injury and is day-to-day. Well, Joey Anderson was active off of injury reserve and returned to the AHL. So we'll talk about Anderson a little bit because he was on waivers, but he started the season on injury reserve, so good to see he's back in the AHL. Very interesting note there that Jason Dickinson missed Sunday's game with undisclosed injury. Hopefully he won't be out for an over long period of time. Yoel Kiviranta is out indefinitely for the Avalanche with a lower body injury, so not overly great news there. He's a solid bottom 6 forward for the Avalanche, so seeing him be out for any length of period of time is not overly good. Nils Lundqvist will be out for a bit after leaving Thursday's game for the Dallas Stars with a lower body injury, so not great news there for the Stars, as Lundqvist was a really solid player there for the Stars. Rossi and Bogosian in Minnesota both missed Monday's game due to a lower body injury. It sounds like Bogosian might go on injured reserve, so that won't be very good news there for the Wild, as he's a solid 6'7" defenseman, while Rossi is a solid top 2 center, is also going to be out for a little bit of time, so not great news there for Minnesota. While Nashville, Jonathan Marchand missed Saturday's game with a lower body injury and is out day-to-day. Well, Nick Hague could return at some point this week from his upper body injury that's kept him out the first 2 weeks of the season, so good news there. It seems like Hague is nearing a return from his injury and making his Predators debut, but very bad news there that Marshall might be out for the next couple of games for the Predators. Shane Gostisbehere left Saturday's game with a lower body injury, didn't return to game action, and missed Monday's game due to a lower body injury, so hopefully Gostisbehere won't be out for an overlong period of time. That Canes blue line is already missing Jacob Slavin, so hopefully he won't be out for an overlong period of time. Alex Romanov, who missed 1 game with upper body injury, should return to game action on Tuesday, so it's a really good boost there that Romanov could return later today for the New York Islanders. Carson Soucy was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action from his undisclosed injury, so Soucy missed about, I think, 3 or 4 games, so good to see that Soucy was able to get back last night, as that's a big boost for the Rangers D-core. Pierre-Luc Dubois was placed in injury reserve with a lower body injury, so not too surprising there. Hopefully he won't be out for an overlong period of time, but it's very interesting note there. Then in the Pacific Division, Edmonton's Alex Regula was placed in injury reserve with an undisclosed injury. Kasperi Kapanen left Sunday's game with an undisclosed injury and didn't return, and Jake Wallman was active of injury reserve with an undisclosed injury and should make his season debut on Tuesday, so really good stuff there. Good to see Wallman's going to make his debut in the very near future, while Regula was already missed a couple of games with injury, so not too surprising he was placed in injury reserve to make space to activate Wallman. And Kapanen seems like might miss a little bit of time, so it would be a really bad blow because he's a really solid bottom 6 forward. For the Sharks, Shakir Mukamadun has an upper body injury and was placed on injury reserve, so not great news there for San Jose Sharks, as he's a really solid young up and coming defenseman. Frederick Gaudreau in Seattle will be out 4 to 6 weeks. We already mentioned that, but he's been placed in injury reserve, so bad blow there, as Gaudreau's going to miss a little bit of time with his upper body injury. Well, Jared McCann missed Monday's game, so yesterday's game, with upper body injury and is out day-to-day. So hopefully McCann won't be out for an overly long period of time, but that is a bad blow there for the Kraken. Filipino left Sunday's game with a head injury, didn't return and was placed in injury reserve, and there's some speculation it could be a little bit longer than just a week or two, and it might be something that's maybe closer to like month to month. So very interesting note there, but hopefully Chytil's not going to be out for an over long period of time, knowing his problems with concussions. Then on top of that, Nils Höglander, in order to place Chytil on injury reserve and create a little more roster flexibility, Höglander's been placed on long-term injury reserve, so not too surprising there. And Mark Stone left Saturday's game with a wrist injury for the Vegas Golden Knights, and is out week to week, so he's at least going to miss a couple of weeks for the Golden Knights, which is awful blow for the Knights, given the fact Stone had started the season with 13 points in 6 games for the Knights, which was absolutely phenomenal. So a bad blow there for the Golden Knights, as Stone is currently going to go on injury reserve and be out for a couple of weeks. So now really great news there. But very interesting injury updates from all around the NHL over the past 3 days. Next, going over to some reassignments, some recalls, and waiver updates. So when it comes to reassignments, Ottawa has reassigned Alex Regula to the AHL, as well as Levi Meralainen. Tampa assigned Santini, Sabrin, and Geeky to the AHL. Ogren was assigned to the AHL by Minnesota, Lambert by Winnipeg, Morrow by NYR, and Mancini by Vancouver. Well, Zach Jones and Noah Ostlund were recalled by the Buffalo Sabres. Owen Beck was recalled by the Montreal Canadiens, Matt Sogard by the Ottawa Senators, the Astis by the Tampa Bay Lightning, Juracek and Pitlick were recalled by the Minnesota Wild, Desimeo was recalled by the Columbus Blue Jackets, Luca Cagnoni was recalled by the San Jose Sharks, Otto Vinen by the Seattle Kraken, and Amon and Labate as well as Wallander by the Vancouver Canucks. So if you look at all these injury updates, with the injuries to guys like Danforth and potentially even Bryson, it's no surprise that the Buffalo Sabres recalled Jones and Ostlund. With the injuries to Gooley as well as Doc and Line, it's no surprise that the Canadiens called up Beck. The Senators sent down Kaliev because they feel like they have a couple of solid NHLers. They don't need Kaliev right now. Will they swap backup goaltenders? So at the current point, Sogard's at the NHL and Meraline's at the AHL. So very interesting note there. With Nikita Kucherov most likely coming back in the very near future, and a couple of other guys who are in injury reserve potentially returning in the not too distant future. They didn't need guys like Santini and Sabrin at the NHL anymore, so they sent them down. They also sent Connor Geeky down, potentially to get him some more AHL playing time, and they called up the Astis just in case they needed an extra defenseman. I think the Astis is a defenseman. On top of that, Juracek and Pitlick were called up, especially with the injury to a guy like Bogosian. They needed some sort of defensive help, so they recalled Juracek. Recalled Pitlick, who can be a solid bomb 6 forward. On top of that, they sent Ogren back down, so not too surprised there. I think they need to move Ogren down cap-wise, so not too surprising. The Winnipeg Jets reassigned Brad Lambert, so very interesting note there. He might be recalled in the next couple of days, but very interesting note there. With some injuries to a guy like Erica Branson, the Jackets needed some more defensive help, so they call up Mayo. With the injury to Shakir Mukhamadullin, the Sharks needed a little bit more defensive help, so they called up Cagnoni. With the injuries to Goudreau and McCann, the Seattle Kraken needed a guy like Otto Vinen up just to provide some more depth. With potential injuries to guys like Chytil, Karamaki, with Besser currently missing a little bit of time right now, it's not too surprised that they send down Mancini to make some cap problems work, while they call up Amon, Wallander, and Labate. So very interesting note there. And then with the fact that Soucy's back, no surprise that Morrow was sent down to the minors. So very interesting note there, but some very interesting reassignment and recall updates. When it comes to waivers, Joey Anderson, who started the season on injury reserve, was placed on waivers, and he wound up clearing. And then at this current point in time, Daniil Miromanov in Calgary was placed on waivers. Don't know the exact outcome of it at this point in time. So very interesting note there. Miromanov, I think, could be claimed by 1 or 2 teams. He is making over $1 million, so I wouldn't be one bit surprised if he did clear. But he's a guy who can be a solid 6'7" defenseman, so I wouldn't be one bit shocked if he did wind up getting claimed. Well, for Anderson, I don't think it's too much of a surprise he cleared because he was starting the season on injury reserve. Even though he can be a solid like 4th liner, spare forward, I'm not too surprised he wound up clearing. So those are the waiver updates from our past couple of days. And lastly, going over to a couple of small pieces of news. Brandon Montour, Beck Malenstein, and Seattle and Buffalo, respectively, have taken leave of absences for their teams due to personal reasons. So hopefully everything is alright with Malenstein and Montour, but very bad blows to their teams, as Malenstein and Montour are going to be out for the next little bit due to personal reasons. Well, Nick Foligno has finished up his personal leave of absence and is back with the Chicago Blackhawks, so he should be able to get back in the next game or two, because his personal leave is over for the Chicago Blackhawks. Also, some other interesting updates. Brad Brad Marchand was fined $5,000 by the NHL for an incident that happened between Florida and Buffalo on Saturday, where he took Rasmus Dahlin's helmet to the penalty box after suffering a penalty and decided to take the straps off of Rasmus Dahlin's helmet and throw it back on the ice. So that has resulted in him getting a $5,000 fine. So very interesting note there. And lastly, a couple of guys have signed overseas in Oliver Kylington and Ben Harpur, two former NHL level players. Harpur with the New York Rangers, with the Nashville Predators, and a couple of other teams. And Oliver Kylington mostly with the Calgary Flames, also a couple of stints in Colorado, Anaheim, NYI, a couple of small stints that Kylington had. Kylington's been a really injury-riddled player over the past couple of years, wasn't able to find an NHL roster spot. And at this point in his career, Harper's more of an AHL level guy, so instead of signing AHL level deals, we're still trying to find somewhere to get in the NHL contract. They wound up going overseas. Kylington signs in the SHL, Harpur in the KHL, so very interesting note there. But a couple of former NHL players have signed overseas as well, so very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So we got a couple of trade rumors here to talk about. We're going to start off with the Edmonton Oilers. According to Elliotte Friedman recently, he was mentioning the fact that the Edmonton Oilers currently have a plethora of blue liners. Now, if you look at the Oilers team, they have Ekholm, they have Bouchard, they have Nerth, they just activated Wallman, as we just talked about. They have Stetcher, they have Kulak, they have Emberson, and remember, Alex Regula is going to be coming back in the very near future from injured reserve. So they have like 8 to 9 really solid defensemen on their current roster, plus a couple of guys in the minors who can be solid, like 6-7 guys if need be. So with the amount of blue liners the Edmonton Oilers have, Elliotte Friedman personally thinks he would not be one bit surprised if at some point the Oilers potentially try and consider moving one of them. Now, I think that makes complete sense, especially if they were to move one of the smaller guys. The top four is locked in for a while, so none of those guys are getting moved. And there's some talk that Kulak's trying to work out an extension with Edmonton, so it doesn't make much sense that they would move him either. But if you look at guys like Regula, Emberson, or Stetcher, I think any one of those guys could be moved. Emberson's on the younger side of things, but does make over $1 million. Stetcher's, I think, got like $785 for this upcoming season, and regularly thinks at league minimum for a year or two more. So like, it would make some sense to maybe move one of those guys off. If they are even able to just get like a 6th or 7th round pick, that would be a solid move there from the Oilers. They could also try and move one of those guys for maybe like a depth forward, try and make some sort of a defensive for forward swap. That is another possibility. So I'm not going to say it's a guarantee to happen, and also not saying it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but especially once Alex Regula gets off of injury reserve, I'd say keep an eye on the Edmonton Oilers, as there's a very likely possibility that the Edmonton Oilers could try and make some sort of a move regarding a defenseman, whether that's moving Regula, Emberson, or Stetcher. I think Emerson's probably the more likely one, or maybe Regula, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below if you think Edmonton will move a defenseman. Next, going over to Elliotte Friedman, he was talking about the San Jose Sharks recently, and he says that the Sharks are open to moving a defenseman right now, not waiting until the deadline. They are open to moving one right now. Now, they do have a little bit of injury problems with the guy like John Klingberg currently still on injury reserve and a couple of other guys. So I'm not going to say it's happening right now. Maybe in the next week or two, once they get a little bit more healthy on the blue line, I could see him try and consider moving one of them. Now, if you look at the defenseman they have right now, like Orlov signed for 2 years. He's the only guy who's not signed on a pending UFA contract, so they're going to probably keep him. Mukham, Doolin, and Dickinson are big pieces of this team's future. They're not moving either. So you got like 5 guys who could definitely get moved at some point before the trade deadline. That's Klingberg, that's Leddy, that's Desharnais, that's Liljegren, and that's Ferraro. Now, the article I saw mentioning Elliotte Friedman's comments did say that guys like Klingberg and Leddy are very unlikely to get moved because Leddy does have a $4 million cap, and Klingberg just signed with the team a couple of months ago, so it'll be very unlikely to see those guys get traded this early into the season. But Ferraro, Liljegren, and Desharnais are very likely trade candidates. Now, the Sharks only have 1 retention slot, so the very likely fact is they want to save that for something that happens closer to trade deadline. So I don't think if they were to move a defenseman right now, they'd do any sort of retention. But those 3 all do make some sense. Desharnais is a solid 3rd pair defenseman, signed for 1 more season at $2 million. Liljegren is a solid 2nd, 3rd pair defenseman, signed for 1 more season at $3 million. And Ferraro is a solid top 4 defenseman, signed for 1 more season at $3.25 million. And I think they probably want to wait until the trade deadline to get the best possible offer for a guy like Mario Ferraro. But I could definitely see Liljegren or Desharnais get moved in the very near future. Liljegren's a really solid 2nd, 3rd pair right shot defenseman, and he's also on the younger side of things. So I think there would be a ton of teams out there who would love to add a solid guy like him. And he's not overly expensive at $3 million. Well, for Desharnais, he's a little bit expensive for what he brings, but he's a solid guy who can be on most teams a solid 6-7 defenseman. And if they have a little bit of cap room in the space of about $2 million, I think there would be a team or two out there who would take a chance to of trying to acquire Vincent Desharnais. So we shall wait and see on that. No guarantees by any means that anything happens significantly in the very near future, but there's a very likely chance in the next couple of weeks that we could see a San Jose Sharks trade, maybe not closer to the deadline, maybe in the very near future, and that maybe guys like Liljegren or Desharnais could get moved. So we shall wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to the Calgary Flames. I want to bring up the Calgary Flames here because they are currently terrible. This Flames team has been atrocious to start the season. They currently have a record of 1-6-0 and are one comeback win away from being 0-7-0. So this team has been atrocious. They are finding ways to lose to start the season, and they're at this current point in time one of the favorites to land Gavin McKenna. Now at this point in time, I think there's a very likely chance that if they are out of the running of the playoff spot, they will try and move off some pieces. So I wanted to sort of look at potential trade chips for the Calgary Flames for this upcoming trade deadline. So there are a couple of options here we could see the Calgary Flames try and move by the trade deadline. Now, I think the easiest ones will be pending UFAs. This team doesn't have an abundance of pending UFAs. The big one, and the one that's been talked about most, and the one I think will be most likely if the Flames were to be sellers that they could move, will be Elliotte Anderson. He'll be able to get them a massive haul. I think they could get him a really solid trade package. So I definitely think if the Flames continue to lose and are a seller come the trade deadline, I think Anderson is as good as gone. And I think they will be able to get a solid return from him. Besides him, you got guys like Jake Bean, Daniil Miromanov, who are just placed on waivers, and Ryan Lomberg. All those guys are making under $2 million on an AAV. All of them, I think, are pending UFAs. Miromanov and Bean can be solid third pair defensemen on most NHL teams. Lomberg's a really solid, like, fourth line hard-hitting forward that I think a couple of teams who are most likely to be playoff bound come the trade deadline would love to add. So I think those guys will make some sense. I'm not going to say all those guys will get moved, but I do think there's a very likely chance a couple of those guys could get moved by the Calgary Flames. And then you got the guys with term who I think could get moved. The guy we've heard most about with Nazem Kadri, I think he's got like 4 or 5 years left at a $7 million cap hit. It'd be a very difficult trade to make in season work, but I do think if the Flames are this far out at playoff spot and they really want to try and make some sort of a very interesting trade, I could definitely see Nazem Kadri get dealt. The other two other options I could see the Flames deal in season closer to trade deadline would be a guy like Blake Coleman or Morgan Frost. Both have 2 years left on their deal. I think Coleman's making $4.9 million. Frost just signed a deal, I think, of around $4.3 million. So very interesting note there. I think both guys could wind up getting moved. Frost is a solid second, third line center. Coleman's a solid middle six guy. Both can do really well in a number of other teams, organizations. So like I said, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee that all these guys get moved, but if this trend continues closer to the trade deadline and they're still not doing overly good and they want to try and go after McKenna, I could see him be big sellers. And then pending UFAs like Anderson, Bean, Miromanov, and Lomberg, I think will be as good as gone in Calgary. And then potentially guys with term like Coleman, like Frost, and like Kadri, I think they also could look to trade. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But let your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Do you think the Flames are going to be sellers at the trade deadline, and who do you think they could move? Do the Sharks look to move a defenseman right now, and if so, which defenseman is that and where could he go? And do you think the Edmonton Oilers will eventually try and move a defenseman? Definitely your thoughts on all of that. Plus all the news updates, the recalls, the re-signings, and the injuries. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Until this video, if you're like to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never really do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.